Hello everyone, and welcome back to another Dev Diary. You join us having just returned from talking about the joint focus tree Dev Diary that we had last week, which was certainly an interesting one for jogging the old mind of potential possibilities that it could have in the future. Of course, it may end up like some features in the game where it's kind of used once, and the concept is then not really used too much again, but hopefully joint focus trees may see some resurgence, and maybe find themselves popping up in other places. In my heart of hearts, I'm still holding out that one day the very first DLC pack, Together for Victory, will have a little bit of love shown upon it, because I think the focus trees in there are some of the weakest in the game. So maybe there's a world where the Commonwealth nations will have a joint Commonwealth branch, where they all try and build up the Empire of Britain together. But that's enough about last week. We're here to talk about this week, and this week is going to be small features too. Although it's not really about small features plural, it's one feature, and that feature is the Special Forces Doctrine. Let's begin. So, this week's Dev Diary is brought to us by Arhio, who is, I think, the game director, but the titles, let's not get too worried about that. So jumping straight in, we learned that the Special Forces Doctrine is basically a way for the game to develop the already existing special forces without necessarily having to open up, let's say, another designer for them, or having to add in a whole host of new technologies, because special forces already did get some technology buffs in a rework once, way long ago. As a result, the most sensible place that was found to stick in even more buffs and content towards special forces was in the Doctrines branch. So here we get to see a good look at the Mountaineers, Marines and Paratroopers, which are our three principal special forces that we have in the game. I am trying to think, I guess, do like militia ever come onto these branches of special forces? We also have like the penal colonies in the Soviet Union, and in the new DLC I guess we're going to be having the like snowmobile troopers. I guess none of them actually count as special forces under these doctrines though, but maybe I'm wrong, who's to say? Initial impressions show that they're actually not too big. So over here in the Mountaineers, we've got, well, in total that's going to be 9 different things, but only 6 of them are actually going to be pickable because of mutual exclusivity down the branch. I'm probably going to say that's a good thing considering how much of a XP sink there already is in the game relating to the other doctrines, as well as the fact that you need XP to design your divisions, ships and aircraft. So yeah, I'm going to say that bigger is not always better, and this is perhaps one of those situations. The Marines and the Paratroopers branches actually have 10 different things for you to pick through, so slightly better, and in addition to that, the final 2 parts are separated into major branches for you to decide between, so left or right at the end, with all the buffs that come with it. But let's stop stalling, let's go find out what some of them are. Moving further down, we find out that for the different branches, each of them will be requiring different types of corresponding experience. So for the Mountaineers, you're going to need Army XP, for the Marines, you're going to need Navy XP, and for Paratroopers, you're going to need Air XP. Now, I guess an argument could be made that technically all of them are Army troops and therefore need the Army XP, but frankly I'm taking the opinion of just game mechanics here and saying having not to use so much Army XP for everything is a much better alternative, and at least there is a justification that Marines definitely do involve ships and you can't have Paratroopers without planes. Following on from that, we also see that branch specialisms that you pick, whether it's Mountaineers, Marines or Paratroopers, are going to be limited to 1. So you only pick 1 of these branches, and some nations may unlock a second branch that they can pick. So that's going to be your Mountaineers and your Paratroopers, or your Marines and your Mountaineers, but not all 3. At no point can anyone pick all 3. Their belief is that this is because of game balance. There are going to be buffs in here, not specific to Mountaineers or Marines or Paratroopers, but kind of general buffs, that if you were to have all 3 branches available to you, you would be kind of multi-stacking buffs across the board for general special forces, which is probably not within their design code. Some of the end goals we're hoping to get out of this is changing the way that players design divisions, I guess when they say divisions here, they're meaning their special forces divisions, as well as potentially change how you use your special forces on a strategic level. So maybe that means not building 2-width paratroopers all the time to just grab victory points. Surely I don't do that. Surely. Chapter 1. Mountaineers. Far over the misty mountains cold, through dungeons... Wait, what? So in this introductory image, we see the first doctrine you can take is Elevate the Mountaineers. Standard 100 doctrine cost with army XP, and with it your Mountaineers are going to use 0.0 supply use. I question that number as being final, that doesn't make too much sense, but special forces across the board are going to get soft attack and organisation, as well as enabling rangers. Finally, you get Mountaineer Special Forces cap contribution minus 25%. So, to break that all down, Mountaineers are going to be even more useful in very low supply mountain ranges. All of your special forces, so this includes your Marines and your Paratroopers, will have more soft attack and org. That's why it's important that you don't have access to all 3 branches, because there's going to be special force buffs for every single branch, and you get the Mountaineer Special Forces cap contribution, meaning you can field even more Mountaineers than perhaps a nation that wouldn't have this particular doctrine. The question remains though, what's Rangers precious? Apparently Rangers are a support company, which is a more combat-oriented mounted recon. They have high org, and they're better in adverse terrain types. So I guess this is kind of what I imagined was already in things like Road to 56. I distinctly remember them having like an absolute ton of different types of special troops, and I think some of them came in the form of support companies as well. And they had ones like Jungle Friends and Jaegers, and goodness, there was just a lot. Your first choice down the Mountaineer branch could see you pick Cold Weather Specialists, which has the effect of giving your Rangers better cold acclimatization gain factor, as well as them making them better in the snow terrain type. So if you've got some Mountaineers and you stick some Rangers in them, then that can be pretty good. Although I also don't necessarily see anything that's suggesting that you have to stick the Rangers inside of special troops. That is to say, you could be playing as, let's say, the Soviets or Finland, perhaps, and if you're going to be fighting against the Soviets or vice versa, then going after this, even if you don't have any mountains you're going to be fighting in, could be good just to unlock the Rangers, so you can have that additional buff for fighting in the cold and fighting in the snow. Yeah, I'm actually a pretty good fan of these Rangers. I quite like this. It is of course funny that they're in the Mountaineers branch, but I get it, I like it. If the snow version wasn't to your liking though, you have the other side, which is the rough terrain specialists, which gives your Rangers a buff in mountains. So if there isn't any cold, if there isn't any snow, maybe you're fighting in, let's say, South America or something. Goodness knows there's a lot of mountains in Colombia and Peru. Ooh, I dread to think. Maybe this version, giving you even stronger mountain troops with your Rangers, could be the one for you. They say that they're not going to spend time showing us every single doctrine that's going to be available to us, but the ones we do see, we're just going to go break down and see what we can make of them. So this one is Mountain Artillery. It's mutually exclusive with Holding the Line, and it follows on from Battlefield Intelligence. And it's not exactly clear, I think, from the effect, but we do have the description in the dev diary. So what this is if you have a support artillery, I think, inside your division template, then all Mountaineers inside that division template will gain plus 15% breakthrough. So the idea is to incentivize you to build a type of special forces design instead of kind of using a strict template, because perhaps previously the special forces kind of stuck to a ultimate template design, usually based around average combat width and the size of the amount of special troops your nation could field. So the idea now is that depending on which doctrine branch you're going down will also impact what is the best type of special forces design for you to go with too. On the flip side, we see Holding the Line doesn't give you a buff from support artillery, but instead reduces the size of your combat width and gives your Mountaineers more defense. So this seems to be the defensive Mountaineers, and the mountain artillery maybe is a lot more offensive considering you get breakthrough with your support artillery. It's the classic, are your Mountaineers there to defend or attack? I guess that's up to you. Side note, I'm just wondering if battlefield intelligence will have something similar to mountain artillery, where maybe it's got scouts, recon companies are going to be used, and if you've got scouts or recon companies in your Mountaineer divisions, maybe they give you some buffs. Just me guessing, but battlefield intelligence sounds like it's something to do with recon. The final choice you'll find at the end of the Mountaineers doctrine is deciding whether you want your special forces to become a part of your main standing army, or if you want to keep them as an elite, separate armed force, like your like private special forces on the side. With backbone of the armed forces, all your Mountaineers are going to get more soft attack, and more soft attack is always good. It's just one of those baseline good stats, as well as the ability to have 25%, I guess it depends on how you really want to work that out, but Mountaineers do not use as much of your special forces cap, is going to be the easiest way for me to say that, but it's not necessarily the fact that they're 25% less consuming. It's also to note here that your special force division training time will go down, but it's also worth noting that once you reach the end of the doctrine, how many more special forces are you going to be training at that point? Maybe some, but not necessarily the strongest part of that doctrine. If you don't feel like having your special ops Mountaineer divisions, spamming them out and getting as many as you can, then you can have some more generic buffs across the board towards special forces attack plus 10%, more cold acclimatization, more heat acclimatization, and a generic special forces capacity multiplier. So you can choose to use that on getting a Mountaineer, but maybe there's something else you need. Maybe you need an additional Paratrooper just to capture that last victory point. I say that, of course, because the non-combat out of supply buff is especially useful when it comes to things like naval invasions and paradropping into places. Chapter 2. Marines. So, full disclosure, in my HOI4 playtime, I have very, very rarely actually used Marines. I've usually just used infantry divisions. So whether this is going to be a push for me to start using Marines, I'll be interested, but it's always been Mountaineers and Paratroopers for me. So with Elevate the Marine Corps, you get some similar buffs that we saw previously, generic special forces buffs included, but you also get Pioneers, we'll see what they are, and naval invasion capacity increase with a Marine Special Forces cap contribution reduction. I cannot deny the naval invasion capacity buff on its own is already a good starting sell for something to pick up quite early. The dev diary described that the Pioneers that you have unlocked are the equivalent of Marine trained sappers and combat engineers, and are the alternative to standard military engineers, so our shovel friends, giving you increased offensive capability in hostile environments and can be specialised for shores and jungles. So I guess we are getting the jungle specialists. Inside the Marines doctrine we have shore parties here, which is mutually exclusive with jungle specialists, and for those who choose it, Pioneers when they're, it appears like accompanied with a special rocket unit, although goodness, no, that is rockets, isn't it? That is rockets for shore bombardment, giving amphibious movement, attack and defense. Now, do you have to play Fortunate Son when you take this doctrine? That's my question. The mutually exclusive version we have is Jungle Specialists, which also involves some rocketry and is buffs towards jungle. Not as powerful buffs though. Okay, so I might have been a bit quick on the previous Marine stuff, but that's because I needed to get to this, because this is interesting. Now, once you reach the second mutually exclusive choice, you have the option to go for Marine Commandos. Marine Commandos are a new line battalion that give you hit and run naval invasions where you don't need a port to exfiltrate, meaning you can land anywhere and get out anywhere, as in from any coastal province. What? I'm just trying to think what are the consequences of this now, because in theory, is this not one of those things where you can try and, let's say, attack somewhere, take a state, hold it for like, I don't know, is it a month that you're required to hold a state? Then you delete a factory, then just leave. You don't even need to contest a port. You just need to hold the state in a majority position, delete a factory, then leave. Maybe blow up the railway while you're there and get out. Destroy the supply. Maybe there's an airport that's situated on the coast and you can literally just land a marine there, take the airport, disable all of their air supply and air superiority in that region because you've just shifted their planes to another airport, and then leave again. Just leave. This feels like some absolute top tier trolling, and I'm scared about what consequences that could have in like competitive multiplayer. Oh my goodness. I mean, I like it, don't get me wrong, I think it's great. I just think it has the potential for some serious trolling. I'll be fascinated to find out as the meta develops what these kind of marine commandos could be used for, because I'm certain somebody will think of some nefarious uses where you can drop in marine commandos somewhere and get them out having done something dastardly. Oh, I'm sorry, I forgot to go on. Demolitions expert means that your marine commandos have more breakthrough, brilliant if you're fighting, and they will cause 1 level of damage to all strategic state buildings after a naval invasion. It is unironically designed for you to troll the enemy. It is just trolling. Guys, before we play, make sure you check the rules. Marine commandos are banned, guys. I'm just saying, I'm seeing it right now. If the Giga trolling path isn't to your entertainment, then we do have expeditionary units, giving you a nice buff towards air superiority. I mean, you can't go wrong with that. Some more supply capacity multiplier, and naval invasion planning percent. This ends with some special forces attack and shore bombardment bonus. So this to me feels like just a good buff for your standard D-Day. Somebody who isn't really worried about going in and out, somebody who's planning one big naval invasion, and once they land, they're there to stay. Still, all good, but I'm very excited by the trolling marine commandos. Chapter 3, Paratroopers. Our final doctrine is dedicated to our red friends, old two-width boys who take out victory points for us. So let's see if the devs have done anything to justify having some actual thick, good paratroopers that don't just instantly get encircled and die. The initial doctrine, Elevate the Paratroopers, makes it, I believe, so that your transport planes are going to be even better at getting you there. The standard Special Forces buff, as well as a Paratrooper Special Forces cap contribution. So I'm not seeing any interesting, unique things being unlocked here, like we had previously. But okay, let's keep faith. Maybe it gets better. The initial choice we find ourselves with is what type of paratroopers you want to go into. So we have a mutual decision between reconnaissance and sabotage versus combat insertion. So in reconnaissance and sabotage, you're getting to choose if your paratroopers drop somewhere, they do damage to military factories, civilian factories, and infrastructure. It also states that this effect can occur once per state every 30 days, meaning if you keep the paratroopers alive in the state, they're just going to keep ticking down, attacking in the state all of the infrastructure. So this is interesting because it's giving you the alternative that you're not necessarily just trying to take victory points. There's also a justification for maybe taking a port or taking a supply hub, sticking in it, and then just using it as a hub to cause havoc and annoy every single person you can in the state. Kind of seeing if the state infrastructure of the enemy can attrition faster than your paratroopers can attrition, meaning making them two-widths is not to your advantage. On the flip side, we have combat insertion, which gives you the buff that in any state where your paratroopers have gone into, enemy divisions there will have their organisation reduced, which again happens every 30 days that the paratrooper is there. So this is the case that you want to get maybe like surround the back line of a state, find where their supply hubs is, maybe steal a port or something, and then just hold out, and slowly but surely, tick tick tick, their org goes down. I do like this buff, although I wonder how awkward it's going to be with the rate of org recovery. Is it going to be like, you land there and then on April 1st, they take like a 10% org buff, but then by like April 3rd, the org's just going to be all the way back up to where it was. It really depends on how much org reduction there's going to be and how fast the enemy recovers it that will really determine how useful this doctrine really is. I would have kind of preferred an additional cap reduction on enemy org. Like enemy org in that state is minus 10% flat. So that means they have like every month they take a little debuff, but they have a flat debuff because, well, there's some paratroopers there causing them problems. That's just my opinion though. Perhaps on the memeier side of things, we have airborne armor. Tanks with parachutes. Parachute tanks. I'm pretty sure I saw the A-Team do this once in a film, but goodness, what? And finally, the mutually exclusive branches for paratroopers distinguish between a focus on paratrooper combat and supportability. So we have airborne signals here with a battalion modifier for radio companies by the looks of it, meaning that to anybody who has it, all paratroopers within that division will have plus 15% defense. So yeah, getting the paratroopers in is less so about just nabbing the victory point, but keeping them alive for as long as possible to cause as much problems as possible. Or you can take the flip approach of not just trying to have them hold out there, but also be a combative force with the best of the best doctrine, where all paratroopers get plus 15% breakthrough and plus 15 soft attack. So at the cost of division training time. So that's going to be the case that you're kind of using paratroopers how you used to use paratroopers, and to some degree still do, where you land them in the back lines and you either use them for victory point taking, or you kind of use them to cut off the enemy and almost engineer encirclements before they've even begun. As with the previous 3 doctrine branches, we also see the more casual version, where we see that the medic tent gives you some recovery rate, and we see strategic airlift core, where your paratrooper transport space factor is down by 50% and your special forces supply grace is up by 24 hours. So an extra day of not needing supply should you find yourself not landing on a supply hub. And with that ends this week's dev diary. So yes, very interesting. Interesting to see how it's going to play. I like the Marine Commandos. I think they're very, very trolly, but could be funny, could introduce new metas. The thing is they're at the bottom of the Doctrine branch though, so they're not necessarily like early game, not even necessarily mid game actually. You could get your Navy guy at the start of the game and not have any ticking rate for you to be able to unlock them till 1940s. We also have some new support companies being unlocked as well, so that's something to look forward to. And all in all, paratrooping tanks. Let's see what they look like. I'm sure we will eventually. Tell me what you think. Tell me what your thoughts are. Is this good? Is this good changes? Is this bad changes? I'm sure you'll have an opinion. Thank you very much for watching. If you liked, feel free to like, feel free to subscribe, and I'll probably see you all next week.